The worst cards in Hearthstone are not that hard to find. You just look at a set and you're like, oh yeah, that card sucks. We go from the legacy set up until Fortune the Barrens. And I selected 1 to 2 cards per expansion, besides Wrath Against Rumble and TGT, because damn, those expansions are terrible. Keep in mind, for the worst cards, I selected things with an effect. If the card has no effect, like let's say Worgen Greaser, obviously the card is by far the worst in the entire set. It doesn't do anything. But that would be boring to pick, so I only selected cards with an effect. We talked about the best cards per set in the last video. Here are the worst, starting with Lawwalker Cho in the legacy set, as well as Combo Man. Not even a better cry. You have to combo this card for it to use the effect of Zap, and then you just get a 5/3 for 6 mana. That is so terribly bad. I think this card never saw play in a single deck ever. So because of that, for like a single card that is the worst in here, I would probably go with that. However, we also have Lawwalker Cho, Miller's Mana Storm, and Net Pagel. You would never play Lawwalker Cho for any reason ever. The next 3 cards are pretty simple. In Naxxramas though, the worst legendary, which is an alright card in Battlegrounds. I think even there it doesn't really see play. It's Maexna. Having Poisonous on a card, not that bad. Having Poisonous on a 6-drop, that doesn't do anything, but being Poisonous, that's pretty bad. The worst cards in GvG, there are a couple, but the worst one for sure is Hammered Nestingberry. Never saw play, makes no sense, only destroys a beast, and even then you have a 6/3. I crafted this card in gold because it's that bad. It's active in like 1 out of 10 games. Maybe. And then it destroys something like a 2-drop and it doesn't matter. In Blackrock Mountain, another adventure, we got this card, Rent Blackhand. First of all, you have an 8/4 for 7 mana. That's already bad. You don't want to play that. Then you have to hold a dragon, and then you can only target a legendary minion. It's so specific and so bad. You just would never play this. Also crafted him in golden, because why not? Then in the grand tournament, as mentioned 2 minutes ago, there are 3 cards I selected for the worst ones in here. There is Ball of Spiders. Never saw play anywhere. Even for 3 mana, you wouldn't play this card in Hunter. I would say maybe for 2 mana, because you get like 3/3 in stats. But Web Spinners to give you a random beast? That's terrible. That has always been bad. This card never saw play and will never see play. Same with Asympmore. Turns out Hunter got some bad cards in this expansion. You would also never play Asympmore. How would you have a 7 mana 4/2 that destroys something after you damage it? Why not just use a 7 mana card to destroy the target? And lastly, this card. Would you like to Hero Power on Rogue and give this +1 attack for 2 mana? No? Okay. Yeah, that's why it's in this list. Yeah. Then we go to League of Explorers. We had Brand, Finley, Reno for really good cards in here. And we also have Summoning Stone. Yeah. People once played Summoning Stone Mage, which then gave them 2 random minions. 2 1-drops, and then the card got destroyed. Yeah, the card is bad. You could technically play Meatwagon, a card from Knights of the Frozen Throne, summon this card for free, and then use a spell, and that's cool and all, but why not just play a minion instead and win the game? That's why this card never saw play. At least it's a stone that summons things. For Whispers of the Old Gods, we got 2. We got the Boogie Monster, a card that never sees play for anything, because why would you? And then also Anomalous. This is only ever good if it gets randomly created and you destroy it while your opponent has a bot. So like 3 scenarios that they don't happen. You just wonder when you look at those 2 cards, who thought about them and why would they ever see play? Like, is there any deck that synergizes with that? Maybe if you play Frostlit, Jaina, and then you would like to have Lifesteal. That's like the only thing I can think about. But there's no point in having the Boogie Monster for anything, so why does the card exist? One Night in Karazhan later and we have Morose. It's a 3-drop, but it's like 2/2 in stats for 3 mana, yeah. Also crafted that in golden. After that we got Gadgetzan, the worst card in here, which I think is the best idea for a card that like has the coolest flavor, but never sees play. It's Blubber Baron. You probably don't know this card exists, but it does exist. You have to hold this card in your hand, and you have to play multiple Battlecry minions first to buff this guy, and then it's only stats. So it's like Edwin Van Cleef with 2 downsides. If this card were to get a buff whenever it's in your deck and you play a Battlecry minion, that would be pretty also bad. That would also be really bad. Yeah, never mind. And that's why it's the worst card in here, but at least it's no Dinomancy, the card that we had in Un'Goro. You spend 2 mana and then you can buff Beast and nothing else. Even if you play a second Dinomancy, you don't upgrade this. And if you don't have a minion, you can't do anything. You can guess the card that is going to be in Knights of the Frozen Throne, which is why I selected 2. The first card you can guess, the second one is Webweave. You would not spend 5 mana on getting 2 1/2 poisonous minions. Why would you ever do that? The worst card though is Morabi. Free Shaman never was a thing, never will be, it's far too slow. Why is this card 6 mana, not like 3? Why isn't this a mage card? So many questions, no answers. So we move on to Kobolds and Catacombs. I thought the worst card in here is this weapon, because it's only ever used in one OTK, which I think I'm the only person to ever play this on YouTube, where you play Major Noggenfogger so you can target anything, you give yourself 30 armor, and then attack, Major Noggenfogger redirects the attack to the enemy's face, and then you win. Yeah, that's just dumb. But I think the worst card in here is actually just Temporis, just one of the legendaries yet again. You would never play Temporis for anything, because the chance of dying is so high that it's just easier to play Emperor and Drakari to get like -2 mana on all the cards in your hand and then do your combo that way, instead of trying to survive for 2 turns and then do a combo. It would only make sense if you want to give a minion charge on your field, so to say, with the extra turn you have. But you're very likely going to die if you give your opponent 2 turns, so it's the worst card in here. In Witchwood, wow, look at this legendary. Yeah, who would have guessed? If you play it, your opponent gets a benefit and then you die. That's not good. In Boomstay, wow, look at this legendary. When you play this, nothing happens. Then your opponent plays a 1-drop and you spend 4 mana to get that 1-drop. So it's like Mirror Entity, but your opponent sees it the entire time. And that's awesome. Next in Rastakan's Rumble, I selected 3 cards, yes, because this expansion sucks hard. We got Spirit of the Tiger, actually any spirit, all the spirits besides the one for rogues, as well as the spirit for shaman where you draw a spell that costs 1 mana less or 1 mana more. You draw a spell, those 2 are good, the other 7 are complete garbage. Like this represents 7 cards, they all suck. Then there's obviously Gurubashi Offering, you would never play this heals you for 2, not for 8. Your opponent just kills this and doesn't deal 2 damage face, but to that minion, so this card is useless. And then there is Hyreek for the worst legendary in this set. Why would you play Hyreek? I used to play a handbuff Warlock, crafted other cards of that in Golden, also good decision. You have yourself a 3% win rate deck. Wow, that's amazing. No, not really, no. It's as exciting as getting armor, which upgrades once per turn with Dr. Boom's scheme. This is supposedly a different card, or it used to be a different card, and they changed it last minute. Because it shuffled bombs or something broken, but now it gives you armor, which makes no sense with the artwork. And they never bothered to redesign this card within 2 years. But then the Saviors of Uldum arrive, and we get ourselves Desert Obelisk. Yay, our favorite OTK. This card is so terribly bad. When you get this from Jandis, you're sad. When you get this card randomly, you get sad. When somebody plays this card, you get sad because they include this in their deck. You can build OTKs around this, but no. Even when you try to make an OTK with this, you need to have at least like 6 of them and Drakari Enchanted to trigger the effect twice and deal 60 damage. If you don't do that, then there's no OTK because it's even random what it hits. Probably the worst piece of any OTK ever. In Descent of Dragons, we get a card that has a cool keyword called Secretly. Chromatagak. You will need to play this and trigger it or buff it or give it taunt because your opponent will just ignore that. And then you get a random dragon. Most of them have Battle Cries, so you just get stats for 5 mana with which you then still have to interact with to get the dragon. So why not just play the dragon? Every human being alive thought about that too, which is why this card sees 0 play to this day. 1 snap and 1 clap later, and we got Urk, Grand Lackey. In Galakrond's Awakening, this mini set, most of the cards are decent, but I always felt that Urk is by far the worst. When you play Takano Warlock, the guy that changes your lackeys to be 4/4 minions, then this is maybe alright, but nobody plays that. And there's no reason to because both are legendaries and there's no guarantee to draw those. And then you still need to get the lackeys. Yeah, no. It's still an okay card, just in Galakrond's Awakening most cards are good and this isn't. In the Demon Knight Initiate set, I think the worst card is Blur. Because unless you play like Yogg-Saron and go for Rod of Roasting, which then shoots Pyroblast into every player's face until somebody dies, Blur makes no sense to include. Again, most cards in there are also good, so it's easy to pick this as the worst. In the core set, I think the 2 worst cards are those 2. Ritual of Doom is just... why? You would need to play Zoo Warlock, which nobody does. Then you need to have 5 minions, and you can only destroy your own stuff, and you just get a 5/5. And then a card from TGT, which is now in the core set, which is Lock and Load. Turns out Spell Hunter sucks, and Lock and Load Hunter is even worse. I think Reynard said this card would be broken 5 years ago. This card was never good. Never. At 2 mana was bad, at 1 mana it's still bad. Getting random Hunter cards, or like random cards in general, especially in Wild, is complete garbage. The worst card in Ashes of Outland is yet another card I did craft in Golden, and that is Alar. The good thing is, people don't read the effect of the Ashes of Alar, which at the start of your turn resummons Alar. So they just destroy the minion, move on, hit your face, end their turn, and you get Alar back. Then when you play Nazarth, you have a giant wall of non-taunt minions that your opponent can ignore. But it is a pretty firebird. In the Scholomance Academy, the 2 worst cards are Divine Rager, because it's a Rager, even though I have him in Golden, like most of the bad cards in here. The worst card I think is Enchanted Cauldron. It's a spell burst card as a 1/6, with the effect that it gives you something random. So most of the time the random won't help you, and you spend 3 mana on a 1/6 minion. That's bad. For the Darkmoon Fair, I selected 3 cards. First of all, Rock Rager. It's a Rager, it's a 5/1, it just dies. Still good stats, honestly, for the cost, and it's really aggressive, but it dies to everything. It dies to a hero power, it dies to Penflinger. There's Deck of Chaos, which sucks so bad. Like, you would need to draw the card to make the deck, it would see play and work, and there's no guarantee to ever draw this card. And without this, the deck sucks. But you can use this for Hyreek, and then Hyreek is a 1 mana 8/1 times 7. And then there's Revenant Rascal. Just because this card never sees play, there's no point in playing this, and it just annoys you and your opponent and the game becomes slower, so there's no point. But I think the worst one is Rock Rager or Deck of Chaos. And for the worst cards in Fortune the Barrens, even though there's just one picture, it's all the caravans. Every single caravan is garbage. They suck so bad. They need to survive for a turn and then you get a benefit. And they are understated 2-drops, so they die most likely to everything your opponent plays. Why were those cards made? I don't get it. It's a nice idea, but it should trigger at the end of your turn, like Mana Tide Totem, not the beginning. And those are the worst cards in each stat according to me. Was I wrong? Very likely. Let me know in the comments down below how often I was wrong. I appreciate your comments. See you next time for a video about Hearthstone.